Hi ladies and gentlemen, Krzysztof the Polish Geek and welcome to the review of Am I Racist by Matt Walsh. And this is going to be very controversial, plenty of YouTubers and critics were afraid to actually review this movie, but I'm not one of them, am I? You don't have to like the person, but that's what critiquing is, isn't it? You gotta just be willing to review a movie in a non-biased and balanced way. And it's probably even more controversial for people to be now reviewing it after the election, but again, just because you don't agree with the person's views of who made the movie, doesn't mean that the movie cannot be judged in and on itself. And personally, Am I Racist is, many people compared it to Borat, and yes, it certainly has a lot in common with Borat, and it's of course done by Matt Walsh, and everyone knows that this guy is one of the Daily Wire people, and he's a very controversial person. He's like this conservative activist, and he disguises himself as this social liberal activist and embarks on a journey exploring the modern anti-racist movement and how much grifting really is behind it. And objectively I would say, can't say I'm a huge fan of Matt Walsh. There are times where I agree with him, but there are times where I do strongly disagree with him, but ultimately that's neither here nor there. I feel my feelings on his politics and activism should have nothing to do with my feelings on the movie, which I actually did find pretty entertaining, funny, and insightful in some ways. Although, was it biased? Objectively, it was. I would be deluding myself if I claimed that the movie wasn't biased, because it very much was. But, as I said, what is important was still very insightful, entertaining, and most importantly, funny, which was actually its major intention, and I did get plenty of good laughs out of watching it. First, I will say though that this is not the type of movie that really would appeal to non-Americans, because this movie very much explores issues that are very much in America. So yeah, I don't really think that non-Americans really would understand this movie. I lived in the United States for 8 years, and that's why I very much got it, and I did experience some of the issues myself when I lived in the United States, but unless you lived in the United States a little bit and had some of your own experiences, then I don't think really this is a movie for you, and I don't think really you really would understand much of it. And that's also probably the reason why this movie hasn't been released in any Polish theaters. The way I was able to see it is that a friend of mine who is a Daily Wire subscriber actually from the United States, he actually gave me his password and email so I could see these movies and review it for you all. And yep, that's how I was actually able to see this movie. So, in this movie, Matt Walsh disguises himself as a social liberal activist with putting a wig with a ponytail and then tight jeans and dresses himself up, and then he embarks on a journey around the United States where he talks and interviews various activists as well as members of organizations and participates in meetings, seminars, all about the modern racist movements. And then he does actually ask them some pretty valid questions, even though they tend to disregard them, and inserts a lot of funny humor into it. And this is all really funny. One of the most funny things about it is that all of those people don't really know his true intentions, and they just assume he's another activist who just wants to participate with them and learn more, even though so they know his true intentions, and they don't even know that it is Matt Walsh. That's how well his disguise works, even though to me at least it was pretty obvious that it was Matt Walsh, but we'll get to that later. And as I said, he actually generally asked those people some legitimate questions and exposed their hypocrisy. Plenty of people would argue that he's extreme, just in the opposite political direction, and can't argue with that. But then again, it's not like he's going to bash the other side. It's his side, so obviously he isn't going to attack his own side. He's a conservative activist, of course he's going to be biased towards his side, which still doesn't change the fact that he does generally, I think, ask some really legitimate questions and exposes the hypocrisy of all those mass corporations and all that. And as I said, also adds plenty of funny humor into it. One of the funniest things about it though was, as I said, how paper thin Matt's disguise was. Because if you do know what Matt Walsh sounds and looks like, then I think to a lot of people it could actually be obvious that it is what Matt Walsh. But then again, I also realized that almost everyone in the world has their doppelganger somewhere in the world. Like, yeah, the way I've seen some people from my life looking alike, it's actually scary. So in all honesty, I guess that could in some ways explain, even if he did sound and somewhat looked like himself, like considering that he was completely acting differently and dressing differently and all that, I guess I can understand why some people didn't recognize him, because as I said, plenty of people in the world do in fact look and sound alike, because yes, I'm one of those people that does genuinely believe that almost everyone in the world does have their doppelganger somewhere else in the world, maybe even in the same country. I will actually though have to give an example, just one example, like one of the characters in that Polish show High School that I really love. Yep, she does look like actually one of my good friends from the United States. I'm not even joking. Won't show the picture of my friend because that's her personal stuff, but that's right. One of the characters does really look like one of my friends from the United States. But back to am I racist? And also, during all those meetings and interviews, there is also a graphic telling on how much money all those people make on those interviews and meetings, which further exposes how much they are grifting. I don't necessarily doubt the noble intentions of all the people that support those activists and the organizations, which does change the fact that they clearly are just grifters and will make you even feel guilty for just existing. And not saying the people on Matt Walsh's side don't do the same thing, but again, obviously Matt Walsh won't expose his side, like, of course he's going to be biased. One of my favorite conversations in the whole movie was when Matt Walsh went to the deep American South and then he talked to some southern bikers in the bars, and you probably could think that those people were the most racist, but they were actually the most reasonable and rational people that he talked on in the movie, because they made a great point that it's not really about race, it's about like judging people as individuals, which is exactly how it should be. Like, I don't care about how you look like or what your politics are or anything. If you're a good person, then you're awesome with me, and it's all that matters. And I literally thought that those southern bikers in the movie very much came off as reasonable people, and if I went back and lived in the United States again, I would be more than overjoyed to just go and drink some beer with all those bikers. Again, I probably won't go as far as to say that I agree with the movie's final message that racism is practically non-existent, it's just on life support from like all the politicians and activists. I mean, they're certainly not making things better, they're probably making things worse, but to say just like that they're the only ones that keeps racism alive, it's not something I would actually agree with. I won't go as far as that, but what also this conversation with those bikers I just talked about very much proves one important thing. Most people are just normal, and normal people are normal, and they won't care about anything, they'll just love you for being a good person, and that's all that matters. Normal people are normal, and they don't care about all that race bullshit and all that. They'll just love you for being a good person, as an individual. And again, as I said, not saying that racism doesn't exist. There's still plenty of racists in the United States and abroad, like all over the world, like in every country you can find people that are racist, but as I said, normal people are normal. And those activists and corporations are certainly making things only worse. Again, I would probably be completely delusional if I claimed that the movie wasn't biased, because it objectively was. As I said, Matt Walsh very much goes to great lengths to bash the other side, and I'm not necessarily saying he was wrong. I do think that he did raise plenty of very legitimate good points and asked some really legitimate questions, but as I said, he obviously wasn't going to bash his own side, but then again, as I said it before, you can't really expect that of him. Like, he's a conservative activist. But it still doesn't change the fact that he really asks plenty of legitimate questions and most importantly very much exposes the hypocrisy of all those activists and corporations, and most importantly inserted plenty of funny humor in that really made me laugh. I also really loved the final scene because the final speech of Matt Walsh was really awesome. How we should all just get along regardless of all the skin color and all that stuff, and then you see black man and the white man just hugging each other as buddies. Like, that was some really awesome emotional moment. It's actually very debatable if Matt Walsh actually genuinely believes that, and plenty would argue that he's a hypocrite and he really doesn't. But then again, that's neither here nor there, and I don't think it really has much relevance on the movie's quality. Overall, I'm really glad I was finally able to see Am I Racist, and overall, I think this movie very much did what it was supposed to. It really made me laugh. I think it raised some really interesting, legitimate questions that really should really be challenged, expose the hypocrisy and virtue signaling of all those corporations, as well as, more importantly, provided some really good humor. It certainly was biased at plenty of times. I mean, it's Matt Walsh, so what do you expect? But I think as long as you keep an open mind and are willing to watch a movie that made by people that you don't agree with, then and have good sense of humor, then I really think you should see Am I Racist, and I think that you should enjoy it then. But at the same time, I will say I think vast majority of people probably have already made up their mind before the movie even came out. I think people like me are very few far in between, because I'm pretty sure that people who just watch the Daily Wire and agree with Matt Walsh and the other members of the Daily Wire probably went to see this movie and are praising it, while the leftists all probably already said, like, they probably crossed off this movie way before even getting a chance to see it. Oh well, it is what it is. Let's just hope there are more people out there who are just willing to enjoy the movie for what it is and have good sense of humor. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for checking out this review. Press the like button, please subscribe to this channel, and I'll talk to you soon in another video. Talk to you then, bye.